Your morning is probably a frantic scramble for control. You wake up and the world is already moving. Demands are piling up before you even get out of bed. It feels like you're always catching up, reacting to a chaos you didn't create. Now picture a man who carried the weight of an entire empire, Marcus Aurelius. The Roman emperor, he faced pressures that could crush anyone, but in his private writings he didn't speak of chaos. He spoke of a deliberate dawn. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive. To breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." And this isn't empty optimism. It's the cornerstone of an ancient system for mastering the day before it masters you. By the end of this, you'll have a complete framework drawn from the Stoic emperor's own practices to transform your mornings from a source of stress into a foundation. A foundation of unshakable calm and purpose. We're going to reconstruct the intentional rituals he used to cultivate mental sovereignty. How did a ruler of millions find stillness while the world slept? What simple, forgotten practices can turn your first waking hour into an anchor for an entire resilient life? What does your ideal morning look like? If it were designed for peace instead of productivity, before the world woke up, before any demands could form, Marcus Aurelius did something radical. He did nothing. He would rise in the dark, in the quiet, and not start doing. He would start by just being. The Stoics had a word for this, prosochē. It means attention. It's that deliberate space, that buffer of pure awareness you create before the flood. You just guide your mind's eye upward. Picture yourself in your room. Then rise, see your building from above, then your neighborhood, your whole city laid out like a map. Keep going. See the coastline of your country, the curve of the planet against the black of space. From there, your city is a tiny patch of light. Your home is invisible, and the meeting you're dreading, the argument you're replaying, the mistake you're worrying over, they vanish. They're gone from sight. This is the cosmic perspective. Marcus wrote to remind himself of this. He said, "Think of the substance of the universe, all of it. And of time, the totality of it. Then realize your own small share is just a fragment of these infinities. The goal isn't to make your life feel insignificant. It's to align it with living in accordance with nature. You are a small part of a vast, beautiful, orderly system. Your worries are part of that system too. But from this height, you see them for what they often are. They're temporary, local events, passing weather in the immense atmosphere of your existence. This practice drains the drama from minor things. That rude email isn't a personal catastrophe. It's a brief exchange between two tiny beings on a speck of dust orbiting a star. This shift doesn't make you cold, it makes you resilient. It lets you engage with a problem from a place of calm choice, not panicked reaction. Try a quick version now. Think of one concern for today, maybe a difficult conversation, a looming deadline. For just a moment, pull your mental camera back. See your street from a satellite's view. See the whole spinning earth. That concern is still real. It still needs your attention. But does it feel quite as heavy? Does it feel quite as all-consuming when held against continents and oceans and the silent expanse of space? This is the gift Marcus gave himself each dawn. He prepared for the chaos of an empire by first visiting the quiet of the cosmos. Marcus Aurelius didn't hope for an easy day. He prepared for a difficult one. That's the core of this next practice, Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. It sounds dark, but it's a liberating tool. It's not about expecting the worst to happen. It's about taking away the worst's power to shock you. Think of it as a fire drill. You don't run a fire drill because you want a fire. You do it so that if the alarm sounds, you don't panic. You have a path you've already walked through. Seneca wrote about this. In his letters, he advised spending time each day anticipating life's challenges. Not to dwell in fear, but to disarm them through reason. He said the person who anticipates trouble removes its power when it arrives. Marcus Aurelius did this every morning. He would walk through his day mentally. He'd visualize the interruptions. Today I'll meet arrogant people. I'll face ungrateful behavior. My plans will be disrupted. This was a kind of mental vaccination, exposing his mind to a small dose of difficulty to build up a psychological immune system. So when he actually met that difficult person, it wasn't a shock. It was just the thing he'd prepared for, and because he was prepared, his response could be measured, not reactive. Take a modern morning. You have a stressful meeting later. Instead of dreading it, you premeditate for 2 minutes. You think, okay, what are the friction points? Someone might dismiss my idea. The discussion could go in circles. I might feel my temper rising. Then you pre-decide your response. If my idea is dismissed, I'll calmly ask for the reasoning. If the discussion goes in circles, I'll focus on clarifying one point I can control. If I feel frustration, I'll pause and take one deliberate breath. You've written a script for your composure or a crowded commute. You premeditate the delay, the noise, the rush. You decide beforehand that your goal isn't to control the train schedule or the other passengers. Your goal is to control your own attention, to use those minutes to listen to something meaningful, or to practice just observing without judging. The obstacle, the crowded train, becomes the place you practice. This turns anxiety into strategy. Worry is passive. Your mind spinning about things you can't control. Premeditation is active. Your mind calmly constructing a plan for how you'll respond to things you can't control. It moves you from being a victim of your day to an architect of your reactions. So here's a question. What's one likely friction point in your day today? Not a catastrophe, just a normal, annoying hurdle. How could you mentally rehearse facing it with calm? How would your day change if that event, when it came, felt familiar instead of frightening? The Meditations was a morning journal, but it wasn't for recording what happened. It was for interrogating his own mind, a conversation with his better self. A daily check-in with the principles he wanted to live by. It wasn't about capturing memories, it was about creating character. The Stoics saw writing as training. Epictetus taught that you have to constantly rehearse your guiding principles. You should have them ready at hand like tools. Without that daily reminder, you forget. You get swept away by the first strong emotion of the day. Marcus Aurelius used his journal as that rehearsal space. Before he put on the purple robe of an emperor, he put his thoughts on the page. He would write down the virtues he needed to embody: wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. He would examine his own potential faults. Where might I be impatient today? Where might I seek praise instead of doing what's right? He was aligning his inner compass before stepping out into a world full of magnetic distractions. Think of it as a morning briefing, but you're briefing yourself. You're the commander and the soldier. You lay out the mission for the day, not in tasks but in values. What virtue will I need most today? Maybe it's courage for a difficult conversation, or temperance when faced with a frustrating delay, or justice in how I treat someone who has little power. The journal is where you name that intention, you make it concrete, and you ask the harder questions. What externals am I mistakenly tying my peace to today? Is my mood waiting for a specific email? Is my sense of worth dependent on someone else's approval? By writing it down, you spot the trap before you walk into it. You untangle your happiness from things you cannot control. This practice turns philosophy from an idea into an action. It moves wisdom from your head to your hand. The physical act of writing matters. It slows your thinking. It forces clarity. A swirling worry, when written down, often shrinks to a manageable size. A noble intention, when written down, becomes a promise you've made to yourself. You don't need a leather-bound book or perfect prose. The power is in the simple, consistent act of self-examination. Try a one-sentence journal entry tomorrow morning, not a to-do list, an intention, something like, "Today I will listen more than I speak," or "My peace is not for sale to minor irritations." That single line becomes your anchor. A touchstone you can return to mentally when the currents of the day try to pull you off course. What one sentence, written quietly at dawn, could change the tone of everything that comes after? Marcus Aurelius would start his day by drawing a mental circle around the only thing he truly ruled, his own mind. That's the Stoic practice, the dichotomy of control. It was his system for finding clarity in chaos. He knew the day would bring a storm of events, but his peace depended on knowing with absolute certainty what was his to command and what wasn't. This morning ritual isn't about ignoring the world. It's about seeing it with perfect accuracy, so you stop wasting energy fighting the weather and start building a shelter within. The philosopher Epictetus, who Marcus studied, put it simply, "Some things are up to us," he said, "and some are not. Up to us are our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions. Everything that is our own doing. Not up to us are our body, our property, our reputation. Everything that is not our own doing, that's the fundamental filter. Your judgment about an event is yours. The event itself often is not. Your effort is yours. The outcome may not be. Your intention to be kind is yours. How someone receives that kindness is not. This morning exercise is running your coming day through that filter. Here's a practical way. In those first quiet minutes, take your mental list for the day. The meeting, the commute, the project deadline, the conversation you need to have. Beside each item, draw 2 mental columns. Label the first one "My Control." Here you list only what is genuinely, undeniably yours. For the meeting, your control column holds your preparation, your clarity of thought, your respectful tone. For the commute, it holds your patience, your choice of podcast or silence, your deep breathing when traffic stalls. For the difficult conversation, it holds your honesty, your compassion, your commitment to listening. That's your circle, that's your sovereign territory. The second column is not my control. This is where you place everything else, the other attendees' moods and opinions. The traffic lights and train delays, the other person's defensive reaction, the final outcome of the project, which depends on 100 factors you can't direct. By naming these things and placing them firmly outside your circle, you perform an act of release. You're not saying they're unimportant. You're saying they're not your responsibility to control. Your responsibility is your column, your judgments and actions within your circle. This practice frees up a staggering amount of mental energy. Anxiety is often just our mind fruitlessly trying to manage the items in the not my control column. We spin our wheels worrying about another person's perception, or a system's delay, or a result we can't guarantee. The morning review stops that drain before it starts. It redirects all that energy into your column, into the things you can actually affect. Your preparation becomes sharper, your attitude becomes more resilient. Your focus narrows to the arena where you are truly powerful. So as you look at your day ahead, ask yourself this. What one thing are you carrying? What one worry are you holding that actually lies outside your circle of control? Can you, just for this morning, mentally place it in that second column? Can you grant yourself the freedom to concern yourself only with your own effort, your own virtue, your own response? That's how an emperor prepared to face an empire. Not by trying to control the millions, but by mastering the one thing he always could, himself. A sound mind needs a sound vessel. The Stoics didn't despise the body. They were philosophers who commanded it. Marcus Aurelius, raised in a culture that valued physical vigor, his morning likely included simple, strenuous exercise. It wasn't about building an impressive physique. It wasn't about vanity. It was about training discipline in the most direct arena possible, the one you inhabit. The body is the instrument of the will. If it's weak or sluggish or ruled by every minor ache, it becomes a tyrant over the mind. The goal is the opposite. To make the body a willing, resilient ally, the teacher Musonius Rufus was explicit. He argued physical training is absolutely necessary for the true practice of philosophy. How can you cultivate courage if you're a slave to comfort? How can you practice endurance if you flee from the slightest hardship? He saw exercise as a way to harden the body against external conditions. So a cold morning or a difficult task wouldn't become an excuse for inaction or for complaint. Marcus himself reflected on accepting the body's needs and limits without drama. He wrote of doing what needs to be done, not for praise, but because it's what a rational being should do, and that includes maintaining the vessel you've been given. This is temperance in action, the disciplined management of your physical self, not for indulgence but for function. The modern equivalent isn't a grueling 2-hour gym session. It's the intentional, mindful use of your body at dawn. It could be a brisk 10-minute walk, where you focus on the rhythm of your breath, the feeling of the ground under your feet. Not the podcast in your ears. It could be a series of simple stretches, paying close attention to the sensation in each muscle, practicing gratitude for what your body can do. It could be a few sets of bodyweight exercises, push-ups, squats, planks, where the true exercise is your focus. The repetition becomes a meditation. You're not counting down until it's over. You're practicing presence within the effort itself. You're reminding your will that it is in charge of this flesh and bone. This practice builds a foundational layer of resilience. Before the day's mental challenges even begin, when you voluntarily embrace a small, controlled physical hardship, the burn in your muscles, the chill of the morning air, you inoculate yourself against the involuntary hardships to come. The frustrating commute feels less oppressive because you've already chosen to exert yourself. The long meeting feels less draining because you began the day by mastering your own energy. So here's a simple question for tomorrow's first light. How can you incorporate just 5 minutes of deliberate, mindful movement, not for calorie burn? Not for a better physique, but purely for the discipline of the act. Can you stand and stretch toward the ceiling with total awareness? Can you step outside and walk to the end of the block and back? Feeling every step as a conscious choice, in that brief, focused effort, you are not just moving your body. You are rehearsing a fundamental truth that your mind commands and your body follows. This is how you forge the physical foundation, the one an unshakable morning is built on. Marcus would seek out slight discomfort to keep comfort from making him soft. That's the Stoic practice, voluntary hardship, a training drill. The Greeks called it ascesis, a discipline, becoming indifferent to things that are, in themselves, indifferent. It's not about pain for its own sake. It's about proving something to yourself, that your peace, your character, your will, they aren't held hostage by perfect conditions. You step into a small storm to remember you can withstand a larger one. You build what's now called antifragility, gaining strength from stressors. Seneca wrote about this. He advised practicing poverty periodically, not from necessity but by choice. He would dress in shabby clothes, sleep on a hard bed, eat only plain food for a few days. Why? To reassure himself, these conditions so many fear, they weren't evils, they were just different. He wrote, set aside a certain number of days, be content with the scantiest fare, the rough dress. And ask yourself, is this the condition that I feared? It's a reset. By experiencing a lesser version of a feared hardship, you drain the fear. You discover sufficiency, not luxury, is the real foundation. Your happiness isn't in the soft bed, but in the quality of your rest, not in the rich food, but in the nourishment, the company. For Marcus Aurelius, as emperor, he was surrounded by ultimate luxury. So his voluntary discomfort was a rebellion, a conscious one. He might forego a richer meal, sleep on a simpler pallet, walk instead of ride in his litter. Each small act was a declaration, a reminder. His identity wasn't in the trappings of power, but in the strength of his principles. He was ensuring the palace didn't become a cage. A cage of softness. So what does this look like now? It's finding small, controlled opportunities to practice resilience. It's not self-punishment, it's conscious training. One example is the cold embrace. End your morning shower with 30 seconds of cold water. Don't just suffer through it, engage with it. Step into the stream consciously. Feel the shock, the gasp, the instinct to flee, and then breathe. Observe the sensation. Your mind screams for comfort, but you choose something else. You choose to stay. For 30 seconds, you are the master of your reaction, proving this external condition. The water temperature does not command your inner state. You walk out not just awake, but empowered. You've already won your first victory of the day. The practice can take other forms, walking in the rain without complaining, taking the stairs, skipping a snack when you're merely bored, turning off the heating in your car for a short drive, just tolerating the chill. Each is a tiny workout for your will. Like reps in a gym, but for your resilience muscle. They prepare you for the involuntary hardships, the missed promotion, the stressful news, the unexpected delay. They teach you that you can handle sensation and inconvenience without coming apart. So a reflective prompt. What one small, voluntary discomfort could you introduce this week? Not a grand gesture, a minor, deliberate choice. Could you leave your phone in another room for one evening? Take a walk without a podcast, just with your thoughts. Choose the simpler meal. In that conscious choice, you perform an act of self-knowledge. You prove to yourself in a tangible way that your peace isn't fragile. It isn't dependent on everything going just right. It's a fortress you build, one voluntary challenge at a time. Breakfast for Marcus wasn't about rushing. It wasn't about distraction. It was a chance to practice something else: moderation, presence. In a world of endless banquets, the emperor took a different path at his own table. He saw that first meal not as a chance for indulgence, but as training for temperance. That's the Stoic idea. Eat to live, don't live to eat. The food itself was secondary. The real nourishment was the discipline, the practice of taking just enough to sustain the body for its work, and not a bite more. That simple act was a daily reaffirmation, a declaration. He was not ruled by his appetites. His teacher, Musonius Rufus, spoke to this directly. He taught that food should be seen as medicine. You take it to restore health, to restore strength, not for fleeting pleasure. He argued for plain, simple fare, not because luxury was evil, but because simplicity builds self-sufficiency. When you need very little to be content, you become very difficult to disturb. Marcus would remind himself of this. In his writings, he reflected on seeing food for what it is. The dead body of a fish, the dead body of a bird, or grain, bread, the product of transformation. This wasn't morbid, it was grounding, a way to strip away the stories. The marketing, to see the substance for what it provides, sustenance from nature, fuel for a life of purpose. Now think of a typical morning meal, eaten standing over a sink. Scrolled through with one hand on a phone, gulped in the car. That ritual teaches your mind distraction. It teaches hurry. It teaches that this fundamental act is an interruption, something to be minimized. The Stoic ritual teaches the opposite. It teaches attention. It teaches gratitude. It turns necessity into ceremony. So here's something to try. Choose one morning meal this week. Eat it in complete silence, no screens, no reading, no background noise, just you and the food. Before that first bite, pause. Look at it, consider the journey, the sun that grew the grain, the rain that fed the soil, the hands that harvested it, transported it, prepared it. You are at the end of a vast chain. A collaborative effort from the natural world. Then eat slowly, focus on the texture, the taste, the simple act of chewing and swallowing. You are participating in an ancient exchange. Taking the world into yourself to become energy for your own contribution. This practice does something. It reconnects you to the providence of nature. It shrinks the space for complaint. When you see your breakfast as a gift of sustenance, not a product to be critiqued, dissatisfaction melts away. Plain oatmeal becomes enough. Simple fruit becomes a marvel. So at your next breakfast, before the first bite, institute a pause, a 10-second pause. Place your hands in your lap. Take one calm breath. Acknowledge the simplicity of the need being met. In that tiny space of gratitude, you are not just feeding your body, you are nourishing a deeper understanding. That enough is a place you can choose to inhabit, starting with the very first meal. Marcus would put on his tunic like a Roman general putting on his armor. He was mentally preparing himself with the virtues he needed. It was more than just a routine. It was turning an ordinary act into a ceremony of intention. The clothing itself didn't matter to the Stoics. It was an indifferent, but the act of putting it on was a powerful opportunity, a chance to consciously clothe the mind in the character he wanted to project. He wasn't just dressing as an emperor, he was arming himself as a philosopher. Epictetus taught this. He said life is like a play, and you've been given a part. Your job isn't to complain about the role, it's to play it well. Whether you're a senator or a cobbler, the costume is secondary. The quality you bring to the performance is everything. For Marcus, the imperial purple was his assigned costume, but the virtues wisdom, justice, courage, temperance, that was the script he chose to follow. Dressing was the moment he accepted the role. He recommitted to playing it with excellence. So this transforms getting ready from a chore into a ritual. You're not just covering your body, you're preparing your character to meet the world. Each garment can become a tactile reminder. A tie can remind you to speak with integrity. A simple watch can be a cue to use time wisely with purpose. A pair of comfortable shoes can ground you, a reminder to walk through your day with patience. The object isn't magical, it's a bookmark, a physical place where you've attached a mental intention. Here's a practical application. Choose one item you wear every day. Something simple, a ring, a bracelet, your glasses, a specific pair of socks. Designate it as your virtue reminder. As you put it on each morning, pause for just 3 seconds. Let that action trigger a single, clear thought. Maybe this reminds me to listen, or this represents my calm, or this is for courage. You're creating a conditioned response. A tiny anchor. Later in your day, when you feel that ring on your finger or adjust those glasses, it can serve as a momentary reset, a whisper from your morning self. A reminder of the character you decided to embody. This practice bridges the inner and the outer. It takes the abstract commitment to being better and gives it a daily, physical ceremony. You are literally wearing your intention, so as you get dressed tomorrow, ask yourself one simple question. What quality of character do I want this clothing to represent today? Is this jacket a cloak of patience? Are these shoes for walking with integrity? Your answer turns fabric into a framework, and you step out the door not just dressed but fortified. The story you tell yourself in the morning sets the tone for the day. Marcus Aurelius wrote his own script. His first conversation was internal, a setting of the stage. This is where Stoicism separates from positive thinking. Affirmations can feel hollow. They're disconnected from reality. Saying everything will be perfect is a fragile fantasy. The Stoic version is different. It's rooted in truth, in the doctrines of the philosophy. It's not about denying difficulty. It's about affirming your capacity to meet it. To meet it with virtue, Marcus didn't use feel-good phrases. He recited truths. In his writings, he said, "Today I will meet interference in gratitude." Insolence, disloyalty, ill will, selfishness. He didn't then hope they wouldn't appear. He followed that with the Stoic truth. All this happens because of their ignorance. Ignorance of good and evil, and this is my opportunity to show them through my actions what good actually is. That's the shift. The obstacle isn't a personal insult. It becomes the raw material for your character. Your internal script changes from "I hope this doesn't happen" to "I am equipped for whatever happens." So a Stoic morning monologue, it's a brief mental rehearsal. You stand before the day and state the truths you live by. It might sound like this: "I control my judgments and my actions. Nothing outside that can disturb my peace, not unless I permit it. People will act from their own nature, not from mine. My task isn't to change them. It's to meet them with justice, with kindness. The present moment is the only place I can act. I will focus on the first task, then the next. I will act with integrity. Not for praise, because it is right. This isn't wishful thinking. Each line is an application of Stoic principle, the dichotomy of control, the focus on the present. Virtue as its own reward. This practice arms you. When a setback comes, your mind doesn't default to "this is terrible." It recalls, "This is the material I prepared for." I control my response. When someone is difficult, you don't think, "Why are they doing this to me?" You remember, they act from ignorance. I will act from understanding. So the challenge: find one true Stoic statement, something you can repeat as you leave home. It has to be a fact, not a fantasy. Something like, "My worth isn't determined by today's outcomes." Or, "Every interruption is a chance to practice patience." Find that single, solid sentence. Let it be the last thing you tell yourself before you step out. Let it be the first line in the story of your day, a story you are now writing. Each morning, Marcus would go over his list of roles, not to feel weighed down by it, but to see clearly how to act in each situation. He didn't think of himself as just one thing. He was a collection of parts, each with its own obligations. He wrote them down. "I am Antoninus," he said, "and my city is Rome, but I am also a human being, and my city is the world." He was an emperor, a son, a father, a citizen of the cosmos. This wasn't about self-importance, it was about ethics. The Stoics had a word for the duties that come with these roles: kathekonta. Appropriate actions. When you consciously recognize who you are in a given context, you get a kind of map for right behavior. You know what a good parent does. You know what a just colleague does. The role tells you what virtue is needed. This cuts through the fog of the everyday. It answers the question, "What should I do right now?" Not in some abstract way, but in this specific relationship, in this specific moment. Without that clarity, we tend to act from a muddled place. We react. We bring the stress of being a manager into our role as a partner, or we carry the frustration from the drive home into our role as a friend. That morning review creates compartments. It lets you step into each role on purpose. When you're in the role of a parent, your duty is to guide with patience, with love. When you shift to the role of an employee, your duty is to contribute with diligence. With integrity, the core virtues are the same, but their shape changes. That's how Marcus could move from the chaos of the imperial court to the quiet of his study. Without losing his center, he just changed costumes in his mind, remembered the script for each part. You could try a quick version of this tomorrow. In those first quiet moments, run through your key roles for the day, not as a to-do list. Think of it as a casting call. Say to yourself, "Today I will play the role of a supportive partner. My duty in this role is to listen fully. Then I will step into the role of a project leader. My duty here is to give clear direction, to encourage. Then the role of a neighbor, where my duty is just simple courtesy. It takes less than a minute, but it installs a filter, so when a difficult interaction comes up later, you can pause and ask, what is my duty in this role? The answer usually becomes clear. As a colleague, my duty is to seek understanding, not to win. As a citizen, my duty is to be informed and compassionate, not just opinionated. So here's a question. What's one role you'll play today where you feel your performance could be more aligned with virtue? Maybe it's the role of a son or daughter, where a call is overdue. Or the role of a mentor, where someone needs your guidance. What would performing that role with excellence look like in one concrete action? By naming it in the morning calm, you're more likely to live it when the moment comes. You're not just going through your day, you're performing it with purpose, one conscious role at a time. Marcus would stop at his door before leaving. He'd take a pause. It wasn't hesitation, it was a consolidation, a transition from the private world to the public one. The Stoics saw life as a series of passages. And how you move through them matters. You can rush out already scattered, or you can step out carrying your stillness with you. That pause is the hinge. It seals the morning's work. It opens the day's performance. Think of the inner citadel, that fortress of mind. Marcus wrote about retreating into it for peace. But the goal isn't to stay there forever. The goal is to fortify it so well that you can leave and engage with the world without being overthrown. That pause at the threshold is closing the gate behind you. You're not abandoning your peace, you're taking it on a mission. You're moving from preparation to deployment. Practically, it's simple. Your hand is on the door handle. You've gathered your things. Instead of pushing through, you stop. You take one full breath. You feel your feet on the floor. And in that space, you recall the clearest intention from your morning. Maybe it's the virtue you journaled about, or the role you're stepping into, or just the word calm. You state it to yourself: I step out with patience. I engage with curiosity. I move with purpose. Then you turn the handle and cross over. This small ritual creates a boundary. It marks the end of your private preparation. It marks the beginning of your social contribution. Without it, the two bleed together. The noise rushes in and drowns out the quiet voice. With it, you create a membrane. You choose what you carry across. You leave the clutter behind. You bring only the tools you selected. Try a modern version tomorrow. As you leave your home or your car before work, take that 3-second pause. Place your hand on the door, feel its solidity, take that one breath, and ask yourself, what one word summarizes how I want to meet the world today? Is it present? Is it kind? Is it steadfast? Let that word be your anchor. Your compass point for the hours ahead. When the chaos of the day tries to pull you off course, you can return to that moment, the feel of the door, the depth of that breath. The clarity of that word. It's a touchstone you built for yourself at the threshold. Before philosophy, you just had the sun coming up. For Marcus, watching it was a daily thing, a reminder of the logos, the rational order behind everything. It wasn't just a nice view, it was part of Stoic physics, a direct encounter with the intelligence they thought ran through all things. Nature wasn't random. It wasn't hostile, it was a vast connected system, a single living thing, and the sunrise was its daily pulse, a visible sign of that deep harmony. To see it was to feel your place in that whole. To feel a kind of gratitude, a humbling one for getting to see another turn of the wheel. Marcus wrote about this all the time. He'd look at the sun and think about its constancy. He saw it as a model for virtue. He wrote, what does the sunlight do? It pours down, it isn't stopped, it isn't withheld. It just gives its light, fulfilling its nature until it's drawn back. And he told himself to be like that, to pour out his own efforts without complaint, to fulfill his nature as a rational being, just like the sun does. He also looked up at the stars at night. He'd think about their orderly paths. He wrote about how the stars are framed together, how their movements are intertwined. And he saw that as a mirror for us. We are framed together too. Our lives are intertwined. Your well-being is tied to mine. So watching the sky was a lesson. A lesson in duty and in connection. It made the small dramas of the palace seem small. Against a backdrop of 1 billion stars, what's a moment of insult? Against the faithful return of the dawn, what's a temporary setback? You don't need a perfect view to do this. The principle is direct observation of nature's processes. It's about stopping the internal talk for a minute and just looking. If you can see the sunrise, that's wonderful. Watch the light change, the colors shift. The world waking up. If you can't, step outside or look out a window, find the sky, watch the clouds moving, their shapes, the quality of the light, whether it's bright or soft. Feel the air on your skin. Is it cool? Is there a breeze? This isn't checking the weather for your plans. This is witnessing the weather as a manifestation of the cosmos. A slow, powerful breath of the planet, and you're standing inside that breath. In that minute of pure observation, something shifts. The mental chatter about your to-do list, your worries, your schedule, it quiets down. Because you're engaging with something older, more reliable than any of those concerns. You're reminding your nervous system of a larger rhythm, the rhythm of planets and seasons. For a moment, you're not a separate self with separate problems. You're a conscious part of a magnificent, ongoing event. This practice builds awe, and awe is the antidote to entitlement. It's hard to feel upset about a small inconvenience when you're actively marveling at the fact that you exist, on a rock hurtling through space, bathed in the light of a distant fire. So here's a simple prompt. When was the last time you truly looked at the sky, not to check the weather, but to just witness it? What did you feel? Try it tomorrow. Give yourself 60 seconds of silent sky gazing before you check a single notification. Let that vastness put your day into its proper, humble, beautiful perspective. Marcus Aurelius had this morning ritual. He'd give thanks in advance for the things he knew would test him that day. That's the Stoic paradox. You don't just tolerate the obstacle. You welcome it. You see it not as something stealing your peace, but as the thing that actually builds it. It's a reframing. His morning gratitude wasn't for easy days or victories. It was for the friction, the resistance, the difficult people, because they were his teachers, really. They were the whetstone for his character. That's the core of it. The obstacle is the way. He wrote it directly. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Read that again. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He's not saying the obstacle disappears. He's saying your path forward is through it, not around it. The rock in your path isn't a dead end. It's the step you have to climb, and by seeing it that way, you change its nature, from a blocker to a stepping stone, from an enemy to a kind of training partner. Think of a common irritant, the long, slow line at the coffee shop. The default is frustration. You watch the clock, you sigh. Your mind races with everything you're now behind on. That reaction costs you your composure. It makes you a victim of a cue. Now apply that morning gratitude. You see that line in your mind as you plan your day. And you think, thank you. This is my chance to practice patience, to practice being present when I'd rather be somewhere else, to observe my own impatience without letting it take over. You step into the line not with dread but with a purpose. You've disarmed it. It can't steal your calm anymore because you've already decided it's a gift. A gift that strengthens your patience, or a critical email, one that feels like a personal attack. The knee-jerk reaction is defensiveness, anger, the urge to fire back. The gratitude practice happens before you even open your inbox. You remind yourself, thank you. This is my chance to practice calm judgment, to separate useful feedback from the tone, to respond with clarity, not emotion, to practice justice, giving the other person the benefit of the doubt, or at least a measured response. The email hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has. It's no longer a threat, it's a test, and you've been studying for this. This mental shift is a kind of alchemy. It turns leaden annoyances into golden opportunities. The traffic jam becomes a seminar in acceptance. The difficult colleague becomes a live exercise in understanding. The disrupted plan becomes a workshop in adaptability. You stop fighting reality and start working with it. You stop asking, why is this happening to me, and start asking, what is this teaching me? So here's a challenge. Identify one predictable nuisance in your day-to-day, not a catastrophe, just a normal, minor friction point. It could be your commute, a tedious chore. A meeting you know will be frustrating. Now, how can you mentally thank it in advance? What specific virtue does it offer you a chance to strengthen? Is it patience, perseverance, kindness in the face of rudeness? Name the virtue, and then, when you encounter that nuisance, meet it not as an enemy, but as an invited guest. The guest who's here to make you stronger. Marcus began his mornings by remembering the end, not in a morbid way, but for motivation. That's the Stoic practice, Memento Mori. A reminder of mortality. It sounds heavy, but its purpose is actually lightening. It's not about cultivating fear. It's about cultivating focus. When you hold the finitude of life in your mind, you instantly sort the essential from the trivial. You see procrastination for what it is, a theft of your most limited resource, which is time, and you see each morning not as a given, but as a gift. One more day to act in alignment with your nature. Seneca wrote about this with piercing clarity. He said it's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. He urged us to imagine our own passing not as a distant event, but as a present reality, to live each day as if it were the completion of our life. This isn't a call to grim seriousness. It's a call to vibrant urgency. When you know the show must end, you stop fiddling with the props and start delivering your lines with everything you have. Marcus Aurelius returned to this theme constantly. He didn't write of death as a tragedy, but as a natural process, a transformation. Like a ripe olive falling from its branch, he wrote, blessing the tree that bore it and thanking the branch that held it. His morning reflections often included thoughts like, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This was his ultimate filter. If this were my last act, would I do it with integrity? If this were my last conversation, would I speak with kindness? That question dissolves pettiness. Here's a practical morning application. It takes less than a minute. As you sit with your coffee or stand at your window, ask yourself one clear question. If I knew this day was my last, would the way I've planned to spend it feel meaningful? The answer isn't about grand, dramatic gestures. It's about alignment. Maybe you'd spend less time scrolling and more time really looking at your loved ones. Maybe you'd finally send that message of appreciation you've been putting off. Maybe you'd simply choose to be less irritated by small things, seeing them for the irrelevancies they are. That question recalibrates your entire compass. It turns obligation into opportunity. That boring meeting isn't just a meeting. It's a final chance to contribute something useful. That commute isn't just a slog. It's a last journey past a world full of beauty you usually ignore. That difficult task isn't just a chore. It's a final project to complete with pride. This perspective doesn't create anxiety. It creates clarity, and with that clarity comes a strange, deep calm. When you are living your days as if they matter, you stop fearing that they might end. So consider this reflective prompt. If you knew for certain that you had 1 month left, what one thing would you start doing today that you aren't doing now? Not a bucket list vacation, but a change in how you show up. Would you be more honest, more present, more courageous in a quiet way? Now, here is the real question. What is stopping you from doing a small, sincere version of that today? Not in a month, not when you have more time, today, in this morning's fresh light. That is the power of remembering. It doesn't ask you to dwell on the end. It asks you to begin truly now. Attention is your most limited resource. Marcus treated his like a legion. He deployed it strategically at dawn. He wouldn't let it get ambushed by distractions. That's the economy of attention. It's a Stoic principle. What you choose to focus on, especially in those first hours, it doesn't just inform your day. It forms your character. There's an ancient concept, prosochē, vigilant attention. It's the gatekeeper of virtue, because our judgments, the things that disturb our peace, they come from what we let into our view. Epictetus put it plainly. He said people aren't disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. Your morning focus is the factory where those views get made. If you start the day absorbing conflict, comparison, complaint, then your judgments will be colored by anxiety, by a sense of lack. If you start by attending to principles, to purpose, to the present moment, then your judgments come from clarity. So a conquered morning isn't about doing more, it's about seeing more clearly, directing your attention to what's foundational, not what's flashy, to what's within your influence, not the chaos outside it. The modern world runs on a tyranny of the trivial. It's a constant ambush. It's designed to scatter your mental legions before they can even form up. The ping of a notification, the pull of a headline, the endless scroll of curated lives, these aren't neutral, they're bids for your most precious commodity. Your focus, and they often win it. They win it before you've even decided where you want to invest it. This calls for a practical rule, a first-hour protocol. After your core morning routine, protect the next 60 minutes. Make it a sacred space for proactive attention. That means a deliberate embargo, no news feeds. No social media timelines, no reactive email checking. Those are all inputs that demand a reaction. They set your mind on a path of passivity, of response. Instead, deploy your attention on one important, proactive task, something that moves a meaningful project forward. It could be writing the first 300 words of a report, sketching an outline, practicing a skill for 30 minutes, reading a chapter of a substantive book. The task itself matters less than the quality of attention you bring to it. You're training your mind to initiate, not just respond. You're building momentum based on your priorities, not the world's emergencies. In this protected hour, you are the general. You choose the battlefield. You decide where to commit your forces for maximum effect. And when you finally do open the gates to the wider world, you do it from a position of strength. Your center of gravity is already established. The trivialities and distractions still come, but now they assault a fortified position, not an open field. So here's a question. What's the first thing that usually captures your attention each morning? Is it the glow of your phone screen, delivering a list of other people's agendas? Or is it a deliberate turn of your own mind toward something of substance? Is that initial capture serving your long-term goals, or is it quietly hijacking them before you've even had your coffee? The answer to that question holds the key. It decides who commands your day, you, or the endless current of things vying for a piece of you. Marcus was looking for a kind of silence. The city was quiet, but his own mind wasn't. It was full of noise, worry about the day, things that happened yesterday, ideas about what might come later. That was the noise he had to deal with first. The Stoics talked about the hegemonikon. That's the commanding part of your mind. It's like an inner fortress. It's where your clear judgment comes from, but it can't work right if it's always being talked over by your own inner voice. So that morning silence wasn't about the city being quiet. It was about making his own self quiet. It was a reset for his own ears inside. He wrote about going into a little field inside yourself, a place that's perfectly quiet. This wasn't about going somewhere. It was a move you make in your head, a choice to step back from your automatic thoughts, to just watch them from the side. In that inner quiet, you can hear your real reasoning voice, not the voice that's afraid or that wants something or that cares what people think, your own clear judgment. The part that knows what's actually good, what's actually bad, and what's just noise. That doesn't matter. Think about your mind when you first wake up. Is it a calm field or is it a busy market? For most of us, it's the market. The list of things to do is already there. A piece of a dream is still hanging around. Some low worry about a task is just humming. That's the internal noise. It sets you up for a day where you're just reacting. You're not even up yet, and you're already talking to a dozen different worries. Ghost worries. The practice is learning to turn that marketplace down, to make a pocket of pure, watching quiet. Here's something you can do. Take 5 minutes in the morning. Sit comfortably, close your eyes if you want. The goal isn't to focus on your breath or to make your mind blank. That's too hard usually. The goal is simpler. Just watch the thoughts come up and then on purpose let each one go. You don't fight them. You don't have to figure them out. You just see them. You think, oh, there's the thought about that email. And then you let go of it. You practice not holding onto your own mental chatter. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who hears them. That 5 minutes is training. For making that separation, at first it might be frustrating. The thoughts come fast, that's fine. The practice is in gently coming back to the silence. Not a forced silence, a chosen one. Every time you notice a thought has carried you away and you guide yourself back to just watching, you make your hegemonicon stronger. You remind it who's in charge. You're not just a passenger on a bus of chaotic thinking. You're the driver who can pull over and turn the engine off for a minute. So try this, a 2-minute experiment. Just sit in silence for 2 minutes. Don't do anything else, just sit. What's the thought that keeps coming up? Is it a planning thought, a worry, a memory? Can you watch it? Name it to yourself: planning, worrying, remembering, and then, without any judgment, let the name fade. And go back to the silence, that simple act of watching without following the thought down its hole. That's the first step, the powerful one, to getting back that quiet field inside. It's how you start to hear your own wisdom above all the other noise. Marcus didn't scan headlines. He'd take in a few lines from Epictetus or from Plato. It was fuel, but for the soul, not just the mind, and that's a real distinction. How you use your attention in the morning. We have infinite information now. You can take in facts, updates, opinions, data from the moment you wake up, but that's a horizontal expansion. It makes you wider, not deeper. It fills you with noise. The Stoic reading was vertical. It was about depth, choosing one dense seed of wisdom and planting it in the quiet soil of your mind, letting it grow roots during the day. Information tells you what's happening. Wisdom teaches you how to be, no matter what's happening. You see this in the meditations. Marcus is always reminding himself of lessons from his tutors, from the philosophers. He wasn't reading to accumulate knowledge. He was reading to recall principles, to re-anchor his way of seeing. He'd read a line from Epictetus about what's in our control. And then, as emperor, he'd apply that filter to 1,000 decisions. The reading gave him the lens. The day gave him the world to look at through it. That changes reading from passive intake to active engagement. You're not reading to finish a chapter. You're reading to find one sentence that resonates. That challenges you, that you can carry like a tool. The goal is to internalize it, wrestle with it, see how it applies to the real situations you'll face in the next 12 hours. There's a practical way to build this. You could call it a Stoic reader. It doesn't have to be fancy, just a short, curated collection, a small notebook. A note on your phone, a document. In it, you gather 10, maybe 20 of the most powerful philosophical passages you've found. They could be from Marcus, Seneca, Epictetus, or any thinker whose words carry weight for you. The key is quality, not quantity. Each morning, as part of your routine, you open this, don't browse. Just read one, read it slowly, out loud if possible, let the words land. Then, in a journal or right below it, you write one sentence, your sentence. What does this principle mean for my day-to-day? Not in general, but specifically. For example, you read Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Your one sentence might be, today when plans change, I will focus on my calm response, not the change itself. Or you read Marcus, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Your sentence, my strength today is in choosing my perspective, especially in that 3 p.m. meeting. That one sentence becomes your prompt for the day. Your theme, you've moved the wisdom from the page into your life. You've given it a job. Throughout the day, in moments of friction, you can refer back to that sentence. It becomes a touchstone, a reset button for your judgment. So here's a question. What's one philosophical sentence you could carry in your pocket today? Not a long quote, a condensed principle, something like virtue is its own reward, or the obstacle is the way. If you had that one idea written on your hand to glance at in moments of decision, what would it be? And how might it quietly alter the choices you make before the day is done? Marcus had this filter question he'd ask before the busyness started. Is what I'm about to do truly good, or is it just preferred? That was his final alignment check. It comes from the most radical Stoic idea. That virtue, your character, your moral purpose, that's the sole good. Everything else, everything you might chase in a day, gets a different classification. The Stoics called those things preferred indifference. Your health, your reputation, your comfort, success in a project, they're preferred, so it's natural to want them. But their indifference in the crucial sense, they carry no moral weight. They can't make you a good or a bad person. Only your choices can do that. And chasing an indifferent as if it were the good, that's the source of all our turmoil. We tie our happiness to getting the promotion, to receiving praise, to avoiding discomfort. And when those things don't happen, which they often won't, we feel we've failed. The alignment check unties that knot. It asks you to look at your planned actions, your goals for the day, and see them for what they are. Not as sources of happiness, but as arenas for virtue. Epictetus put it with perfect clarity. He said the good is a certain kind of will. The good is a choice. It's the right use of impressions. It's your character in action. Seneca echoed that. He wrote that the happy life is a mind that's upright, stable, and fearless. Nothing external can grant that. It's built choice by choice within. So the emperor, looking at his day of petitions and judgments and administration, he didn't see a to-do list of outcomes. He saw a curriculum of character. Each item was a chance to practice justice, wisdom, courage, or temperance. The outcome of the petition was indifferent. How he heard it, how he judged it, how he responded, that was the good. To make it practical, look at your own main goal for today. Maybe it's finish the quarterly report. That's an outcome. A preferred indifferent, the alignment check reframes it. It becomes act with diligence, clarity, and integrity while working on the report. The good is no longer the finished document. The good is the quality of mind you bring to the work. That changes everything. If you're interrupted, you haven't failed your goal. You now have a new arena to practice patience within your diligence. If you discover an error, it's not a catastrophe. It's a call to practice honesty and corrective action. Your peace is no longer hostage to the report being perfect and done on time. It's anchored in your commitment to doing it well right now. Apply it to a social goal. Impress the client at lunch becomes listen deeply and offer genuine value in the conversation. One ties your worth to an external reaction you can't control. The other defines success as your own virtuous conduct, which you can control completely. So here's the challenge. Look at your main intention for today. How can you reframe it? How can you shift the focus from an outcome you want to achieve to a quality of character you want to demonstrate in the pursuit of it? Is your goal to get through the busy day, or is it to move through each task with mindful presence? Is it to win the argument, or to express your truth with respect and listen with an open mind? This final check, done in the morning quiet, it sets your internal compass to true north. It ensures you aren't spending your day, your energy, chasing phantoms of happiness that will always dissolve in your grasp. You're chasing something solid instead, the only thing that is truly, unshakably good, the person you choose to become in the midst of it all. Marcus saw himself as part of a web. He wasn't an isolated emperor, but a point connected to everything else, and his morning routine involved remembering that connection to all people, to nature itself. That's the Stoic idea of sympatheia, the cosmos as one living, rational organism, everything woven together, and if you pull one thread, the whole fabric feels it. For them, this wasn't just a metaphor, it was physics, and from that physics their entire ethics followed. If we're all part of one body, then my well-being is tied to yours. Injustice becomes a kind of self-harm, a rebellion against nature. Marcus wrote about this directly. He told himself to meditate on how all things are linked. He'd look at a loaf of bread and see the sun, the rain, the farmer, the baker, the merchant. He saw his own life as this confluence of countless other lives, all holding him up. And this daily practice did two things. It built a deep sense of duty, of compassion. The arrogant senator, the tired servant, the foreign envoy, they weren't separate from him. They were other expressions of the same universal reason. To treat them with contempt was to insult that logos. His job was to act for the common good of the whole, of which he was just one conscious part. And second, it cut pride down to size. When you see yourself as one leaf on an ancient tree, your individual triumphs and troubles, they look different. Your ego shrinks. You stop taking things so personally because you see the other person is acting from their own place in the web, influenced by forces you might never know. You can approach conflict not as a personal battle, but as a misalignment in a shared system. You could try a small version of this. Tomorrow, before your day starts, pick one person you know you'll see. A colleague, a family member, a stranger like a bus driver. For just a moment, consider their hidden world. They woke up with hopes and worries you know nothing about. They carry memories, aches, private joys. They're also trying to navigate their own web of connections. They're a node just like you. This isn't about fixing their problems. It's about acknowledging their reality, and if you hold that thought, even for a few seconds, your approach softens, your patience expands. You see the person, not just the role they're playing in your story. So the prompt is just a question. How might remembering your connection to a difficult person change how you interact with them? Could that moment of friction become less about winning and more about understanding? Could your response shift from a reaction to a conscious contribution to the health of the web you both share? Marcus didn't write the script for his day. He was there to edit it, to be the expert editor of whatever happened. That's a subtle shift, but it's a deep one. You stop being the playwright who's furious the actors aren't saying your lines. You become the director instead. You work with what's happening on set. The Stoics had a name for this, the discipline of desire. It's aligning what you want with what actually occurs. And not in a passive way, it's an active embrace, amor fati, the love of fate. You accept the day's plot, not because you have to, you choose to, you see it as necessary. You see it as good material for your craft. That's the antidote to that morning anxiety. That low-grade dread about how things might go wrong. That anxiety usually comes from a single demand. A hidden one, the unconscious insistence that reality has to follow your sequence, that the traffic will be light, that your colleague will be agreeable, that your plan won't be interrupted. When you hold that demand, you set yourself up for a series of tiny rebellions against the world. Every red light feels like a personal affront. Every curt email, every change of plan, it feels like a violation of a contract you never signed. The Stoic morning ritual is about tearing up that contract. Before you leave the house, there's an analogy they use, a dog tied to a moving cart. If the dog resists, if it digs in its heels and fights the rope, it gets dragged anyway. The resistance creates the suffering. But if the dog runs alongside the cart or even ahead of it, it moves with freedom, with purpose. The cart is the logos. The rational order of events. Your will is the dog. You can't stop the cart's direction, but you can choose your relationship to the pull. You can struggle and choke. Or you can align your run with the path. Marcus thought about this all the time. He wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny." What could more aptly fit your needs? The practical application is a morning affirmation. Before the day's details crowd in, you state a simple truth. Whatever this day brings, it is the material given to me to practice philosophy. My job isn't to complain about the material, it's to work with it skillfully. That frames everything, every event, pleasant or unpleasant. It's part of your training. A difficult conversation isn't an obstacle to your peace. It's the exercise your peace was built for. A cancelled plan isn't a ruined evening. It's an opening to practice adaptability, maybe to discover a quieter joy you'd overlooked. So here's a prompt. Can you identify one expectation for today? One that, if it's not met, would cause you frustration. Maybe it's that a project review will go smoothly, or that your afternoon will be free for a specific task, or just that you'll maintain a certain energy. Now, can you mentally release that expectation? Not by abandoning your intention, not by stopping your effort, but by detaching your inner peace from that specific outcome. You can still hope for a smooth review. You can work for a free afternoon, you can care for your energy, but you release the demand that it must be so. You make room for the day to unfold as it will. And in that spaciousness you find your true agency, not in controlling the plot, but in mastering your performance within it. Marcus had this morning court. Every day he'd be the prosecutor, the defense, and the judge. He'd put his own potential actions on trial. Temptations he might face, he'd bring them up in his mind and render a verdict in advance. It's a kind of premeditation, but for ethics. Not just what could go wrong, but how you might go wrong, how your character could be tested. And by judging that potential failure before it happens, you inoculate your will. You pre-commit to the harder path. Socrates talked about his daemonion, that inner voice warning him. The Stoics took that idea and made it a discipline. Not a mystical voice, but your own reason, a daily audit. Epictetus was relentless. He said you have to examine your impressions, hold them up, strip away the story you tell about them. Is this tempting thing truly good, or does it just feel good? Is this anger justified, or is it just pride? The morning court is where you do that stripping down. Before the heat of the moment clouds everything, you're about to enter a day full of moral friction, small chances to cut a corner, to indulge a grievance, to choose the easy lie over the difficult truth. The court forces you to name those frictions, to bring them into the light of your principles, and then you argue it out. The prosecutor lays out the easy, selfish action. The defense argues for the virtuous, harder response. And you, as judge, weigh both sides against your philosophy. You deliver a ruling on how you'll act if that scenario appears. Here's a scenario: you have a meeting. A colleague often presents your ideas as their own. The prosecutor whispers, call them out publicly, shame them, get your credit. The defense argues, but what's the virtuous goal? To be seen as right, or to make sure the work succeeds? A private conversation later addresses the harm without public strife, without damaging the team. The judge rules, you pre-commit. If it happens today, I'll note it calmly. I'll wait, I'll request a private word later. Focus on collaboration, not accusation. The work matters more than my pride. You've written a script for your integrity. Another example, you're on a tight deadline. The temptation is to use someone else's work without attribution. Just a little shortcut. The prosecutor lays out the ease. The time saved. The defense presents the long-term cost to your honesty, your self-respect. The judge rules the shortcut is forbidden. You'll do the work, or you'll ask for permission and give clear credit. The verdict is in before you even open the file. This practice strengthens your resolve. It moves the decision out of the emotional moment and into the calm of the morning. When the temptation arises for real, it doesn't find you undecided. It finds you prepared. You've already had this battle. You've already won. The path is clear. So a prompt: where in your life do you feel ethically slippery? What's that one temptation you consistently face? Speaking harshly when you're tired. Exaggerating your contribution on a project, avoiding a difficult conversation. Name that one likely temptation for today. Now hold your inner court. What's the prosecutor's case for the easy way? What's the defense's case for the virtuous way? And what's your final, pre-committed ruling? A disordered room reflects a disordered mind. Marcus valued the discipline of a legionary camp, so he kept his space in simple order. It wasn't about luxury, it was about command over the one sphere he could absolutely control, his immediate surroundings. Ordering your space is a rehearsal for ordering your thoughts. It's a small, concrete victory of will, and that victory echoes through the rest of your day. The Stoics believed in doing the small things well, with full attention, because that discipline trains you for the big things. When you straighten a scroll, or smooth a blanket, or place a cup back on its shelf, you aren't just cleaning. You're performing a ritual of sovereignty. You're telling chaos in a language it understands that here, in this small domain, you are in charge. This practice reduces cognitive load. A cluttered environment sends constant, subtle signals to your brain. Each out-of-place item is a tiny, unresolved task, a visual whisper of something unfinished. By tidying, you silence those whispers. You clear the mental stage so your focus can land on what truly matters. It minimizes distraction at the very moment you're trying to cultivate clarity. Think of a legionary's kit laid out precisely before a march. Every strap, every piece of armor has its place. That order isn't for show, it's for function. In the stress of battle, he can't be fumbling. His readiness depends on that prior discipline. Your morning is your preparation for the day's engagements. A tidy space is your kit laid out and ready, so consider the simple act of making your bed or clearing the breakfast table immediately after you eat. Don't do it as a rushed chore, perform it as a deliberate, mindful first act, bringing order to chaos. Feel the sheets pull taut, watch the crumbs sweep into your hand. In that minute of focused action, you are not just arranging objects, you are establishing a pattern. You are proving to yourself that disorder is not inevitable. That you can, with a few conscious motions, create harmony from mess. This becomes a living metaphor for the day ahead. The tangled sheets are like your tangled thoughts, which you can smooth. The cluttered table is like your cluttered schedule, which you can clear with intention. Here's a reflective prompt. Perform one small tidying act tomorrow morning with your full attention. It could be hanging up the towel you use or putting the coffee mug directly into the dishwasher. Do it slowly. Do it with purpose. Notice how the external order you create influences your internal sense of calm. Does the neatened corner of your desk make your mind feel just a little more spacious? Does the made bed make your room feel more like a sanctuary and less like a reminder of sleep? This is the quiet power of the ritual. It builds a bridge from the outer world to your inner citadel, one orderly action at a time. Marcus began his day by dedicating his work to something larger. To God or nature or the universe, it wasn't about asking for anything, it was about alignment. He would take his plans for the day and mentally set them before this greater whole. Not for a blessing, for examination, to see if they fit. For him, piety wasn't ritual. It was living in accordance with the rational order of things. The logos, to dedicate your day to that is to say your will aligns with the will of the whole. You're a conscious part of a system. Your actions are your contribution to its health. It shifts your view from seeing work as a personal grind to seeing it as a form of service, to a purpose that outlasts you. You see this all through the meditations. He addresses the gods, but not with requests for specific outcomes, with gratitude and a request for inner strength. He writes, "Give me the strength to meet what is destined for me with a good spirit, and to act as you would have me act." He's not asking for an easy path. He's asking for the fortitude to walk the path laid out and to walk it well. The God's will was nature's will. The unfolding of a rational, interconnected universe. To dedicate his actions to them was to commit to playing his part in that unfolding with excellence. With virtue, this practice dissolves the weight of self-interest. When you work only for your own gain, every setback feels personal, a rejection, a failed project. They feel like attacks on your identity, but when you dedicate your effort to a larger whole, the metric changes. It's no longer, did I get what I wanted? It becomes, did I offer my best? Did my actions align with the good of the whole? It frames even mundane tasks with a kind of significance. Filing a report isn't just busy work. It's your contribution to the order of your team, your company, which is a cell in the larger body of society. It's a thread you're weaving into the universal fabric. For a secular application, you don't need a deity. The act of dedication remains powerful. You could dedicate your day's work to the well-being of your family, or to the advancement of your field, adding one small brick to a structure built over generations, to the health of your community, or to the simple ideal of leaving things better than you found them. The object matters less than the gesture, the conscious turning of your intention outward. You could try it tomorrow. In the quiet after your other preparations, add one silent statement. Speak it to whatever holds meaning for you. It could sound like, I dedicate my efforts today to the service of understanding, or I offer my work to the health of my home. Or simply, let my actions be a net positive. This isn't a grandiose declaration. It's a quiet reorientation. It places a frame of meaning around everything that follows. So here's a prompt. To what or whom could you dedicate your efforts today to give them a sense of purpose beyond your checklist? Is it to a person you love? To a future version of yourself? To the cause of reducing suffering in your immediate sphere? When you name that dedication, even silently, you are no longer just checking off tasks. You are performing a ceremony, participating in something ancient, the human need to connect our small labors to a story much larger than our own. The emperor would take the familiar and try to see it as strange. His own routine, the people around him, his duties, to find a new depth in them. That's the cultivation of a beginner's mind. It's the act of stripping away the crust of habit. The automatic labels, to encounter your world as if for the very first time. And for Marcus, this wasn't about novelty, it was about truth. The Stoics had a term for it. The examination of impressions, every sight, every sound, every interaction. It first arrives as a raw impression. It's neutral. Then, in a flash, your judgment rushes in. It slaps a label on it, good, bad, boring, familiar, and that label, not the thing itself, is what you react to. You stop seeing your colleague, you see the difficult one. You stop experiencing your morning coffee, you just perform the routine. So the beginner's mind is that pause, the space between the impression and the label. It's where you can choose to see the thing itself freshly. Epictetus was adamant about this. He taught that we shouldn't assent hastily. Don't let the appearance carry you away. Instead, say to every harsh impression, you are just an appearance and not at all the thing you appear to be. Then examine it, test it, see if it corresponds to the facts. This is the work, the philosopher at dawn, to meet the well-worn path of your day and choose to walk it as if the stones were new. To look at the face you've seen 1,000 times and wonder what thoughts lie behind it today. This practice fights a slow death, the death of engagement that comes from thinking you already know everything, that your job is dull, that your partner is predictable, that your life is set. When you believe you know, you stop looking, and when you stop looking, you stop living with any real vitality. You can practice this with something utterly mundane. Today, choose one routine action, brushing your teeth, making your bed, your commute. The goal isn't to do it differently, but to perceive it differently. As you brush your teeth, engage your senses. Notice the coolness of the water, the minty sharpness of the paste, the sound of the bristles, the feeling of your own hand moving. Try to experience it as if you've never done this before. What is this strange ritual, this paste that foams, this stick with bristles, this careful motion? For 60 seconds, be an anthropologist studying your own life. On your commute, look out the window. Don't just see buildings, see the play of light on glass. The unique color of the sky this morning, the countless individual lives moving behind countless windows, each with its own unseen story. You are not traveling a boring route. You are passing through a living tapestry you've only glanced at before. This shifts your energy from passive endurance to active discovery. The boring meeting becomes a study in group dynamics. The tedious chore becomes a meditation in manual skill. You reclaim the richness hidden in plain sight by your own inattention. So here's a challenge. Pick one familiar person or one routine task you'll encounter today. Can you mentally erase your past assumptions about it? Can you approach it with a quiet curiosity, withholding your usual label? Look at that person's face and wonder, what is their world like in this moment? Look at that task and ask, what can I notice about it that I've never noticed before? In that space of open questioning, you don't just see the world anew. You remember your own capacity for wonder. Before he faced the day, Marcus would take stock of what he truly owned. Not gold, not land, not status. It was an audit of inner wealth. The Stoics called it the inner citadel, a fortress that can't be breached from outside. The question is simple. What do you actually own? Not what fortune has loaned you, but what's permanently yours. The list is very short. Your reason, your capacity for choice, your ability to perceive through your senses, your power to say yes or no to the thoughts that come into your mind. That's it. Everything else, your health, your possessions, your relationships, your reputation, those come from circumstance. They can be taken, but your reason, your will, those are yours until the end. And they are enough, more than enough. They're the tools for building a meaningful life. Marcus wrote about the self-sufficiency of the mind. He said the soul is like a sphere, content if it stays true to itself, satisfied if it follows its own path. He saw his reasoning mind as a complete world, furnished with everything it needed to be happy and good. Epictetus started his handbook with the same idea. Some things are up to us, he said. Our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions. Everything else is not. This morning inventory is running your fingers over the tools in that up to us toolbox. Checking they're there, sharp, ready. The exercise is simple. In the morning quiet, you take a minute. You list your inherent assets. You tell yourself, I can think. I can separate fact from fiction. I can plan. I can solve. I can choose my attitude, meet frustration with patience or with anger. The choice is mine. I have my 5 senses, to see the light, to hear birds, to feel the air, to take in the world without judging it right away. I have the power to act, to move, to speak, to extend a hand. These aren't small things. They're the fundamental instruments of being human. Recognizing them shifts your view from scarcity to abundance. You stop focusing on what you lack: more time, more money, more approval, and you start seeing the power you already hold. We take these assets for granted. We treat thinking as a burden, a source of worry. We treat choice as paralysis, indecision. We treat our senses as dull, numbed by too much stimulation. The inventory reclaims them. It says, this worry proves I can think, so now let me think clearly. This indecision proves I have a choice, so now let me choose courageously. This numbness proves I can feel, so now let me feel this single moment fully. So here's a question. Which of your inner assets have you been underusing lately? Your patience, sitting idle while you react with haste. Your creativity, waiting for a perfect project instead of being used on today's problem. Your reason, clouded by emotion when you need a clear assessment. How could you use that asset today? Could your patience be your tool in a long line? Could your creativity find a new approach to a routine task? Could your clear reason break down one nagging worry into pieces? This daily check means you never start the day spiritually bankrupt. You remind yourself of the limitless currency you carry inside, and you decide consciously how you'll spend it. Marcus would close yesterday's accounts in his mind, the debts of resentment. So he could face today without that weight. He saw it clearly, carrying a slight from the day before. It's like starting a walk with a heavy pack. You walk slower. You tire faster. Your attention is split between the path and the weight on your back. The Stoics put it plainly. Holding onto anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. You're the one who suffers. You're the one whose peace gets worn away. And mourning, that quiet space before the world comes in, that's the moment to practice a kind of self-care. To forgive, not because the other person deserves it, not because what happened was okay, but because you deserve to be free, because your mind deserves clarity. Marcus wrote that the best revenge is to be unlike the person who hurt you. If someone is rude, your revenge is to stay courteous. If they're deceitful, your revenge is to act with honesty. By refusing to mirror their vice, you reclaim your own virtue. You break the chain. You stop their behavior from dictating yours. Seneca talked about the foolishness of clinging to past pain. He asked, why are you holding onto the harm? The event is over. The only thing that continues is your memory of it, your choice to keep it alive. By rehearsing the grievance each morning, you're not punishing the person who wronged you. You're punishing yourself. You're giving them a permanent place in your mind and paying the rent with your own calm. A practical ritual can make this real. It's simple. Take a small piece of paper. In the morning quiet, write down one lingering resentment. It could be a name, a sentence about what happened. Just the core of the feeling. Don't write a novel. Don't relive the whole drama. Just name the weight, then look at it. Acknowledge it existed, and then deliberately tear that paper into tiny pieces. Or if you can do it safely, light a candle and burn the edge of the paper. Let it turn to ash in a bowl. This isn't magic, it's symbolism. It's a physical act that tells your subconscious this is done. I am closing this account. I am choosing not to invest any more of today's energy in yesterday's debt. The space that resentment occupied is now free. Free for better things, for focus, for creativity, for the people and projects that matter now. This practice includes forgiving yourself too, for the mistake you made, the word you wish you hadn't said, the opportunity you feel you missed. That regret is just another form of resentment turned inward. It's another weight. Write it down and release it. Give yourself the grace to begin again. So here's a quiet question for this new morning. Is there one person, including yourself, that you need to mentally forgive today, not for their sake, but for yours? To free up the energy that grievance is holding, what could you do with that returned energy, with that cleared space, if you chose to reclaim it now? After the grand meditations, Marcus's routine narrowed down. It didn't end with the whole day. It ended with the very first brick. The cosmic perspective, the inventory of virtues, the premeditation of challenges, all of it funneled to a single point. The next right thing. This is where philosophy meets the floor, where intention becomes motion. The Stoics called it living in accordance with nature. And nature operates in the present. A tree doesn't grow its whole trunk at once. It adds one ring. This moment is your ring. Anxiety is almost always a failure of this focus. It's the mind trying to hold the entire mosaic of a day, a week, a life, all at once. The weight of that imagined totality is crushing. It paralyzes. The Stoic antidote is radical simplification. Epictetus gave the clearest instruction. He said, don't let your mind jump ahead to what might come later. Confine your attention to the present moment, to the task at hand. He compared it to a walk. You don't try to see the whole path at once. You look at the ground directly before your feet. You take the step that is possible now. Marcus echoed this. He wrote, concentrate every minute on doing what's in front of you. That word, concentrate, means to bring to a center. You pull all your scattered mental energy from the fuzzy edges of worry. You gather it into the sharp center of now, into the physical action your hand can perform. This is how you conquer a morning, not by solving all its potential problems before 9 a.m., but by building an unbroken chain of presence, starting with the very first link. You win the day by winning the first 5 minutes of work completely, so make it practical. Your morning ritual of reflection concludes. You've aligned your mind. Now, before the world intrudes, you must choose, not a vague category like work on project. That's a swamp. You choose the one single next physical action. The irreducible unit of progress. It must be so clear a child could understand it. Open the document and title it. Write the first sentence. Clear the dishes from the sink. Put on my shoes and walk out the door. This action is your anchor. It is the translation of your inner preparation into outer reality. When you begin this first task, you commit to a contract of focus. For its duration, you give it your full presence. You are not thinking about the 10 tasks that come after. You are not checking your phone. You are performing this one action. The Zen tradition calls it mindfulness. The Stoics would call it doing your duty to the present moment. You are laying the brick perfectly because a wall of integrity is built one perfect brick at a time. The quality of your attention on this first task sets a precedent. It builds momentum, not just of activity, but of calm, directed purpose. You prove to yourself that you can engage with reality on these terms, simple, direct, and unimpeded. So here is the decisive transition from preparation to performance. Your prompt is this: what is the one single next physical action you need to take? Can you name it with utter specificity? And then, can you give it your full attention, as if the quality of your entire day depended on the care with which you complete that one small right thing? A resilient mindset isn't a checklist, it's a tapestry. Marcus had these separate threads: reflection, perspective, intention, and he wove them into a single state of being. Long before the palace stirred, the goal wasn't to perform 30 rituals perfectly. It was to cultivate a quality of attention, one that could hold life's complexity without breaking. The practices support each other. A moment of quiet reflection creates space for a wider perspective, and that cosmic perspective informs a clearer intention. A clear intention then guides your next right action. They're phases of a single breath: the inhale of awareness, the pause of consideration, the exhale of purposeful movement. That's the heart of Stoicism as a way of life, not just a theory. The philosopher Musonius Rufus taught that philosophy isn't about clever arguments. It's about becoming a certain kind of person. He said you wouldn't call someone a carpenter who only owns tools but never builds. In the same way, you aren't practicing philosophy if you only know the doctrines but never live them. The morning is your workshop. Each practice is a tool, but the masterpiece is the character you're building, day by conscious day. Fluidity matters more than perfection. If you try to adopt every practice at once, you'll likely feel overwhelmed. The system becomes a burden, not a liberation. That's the opposite of the Stoic aim. The spirit of the routine matters far more than the letter. Marcus adapted ideas from his teachers, from his reading, from his own experience. He made them his own. You have the same invitation to adapt the core principles, not to copy the exact routine of a second-century emperor. Start with resonance, not rigor. Look back over the tapestry of practices we've explored. Which threads speak to you most? Which ones feel most absent from your current mornings? Maybe it's the simple pause for inner quiet before reaching for your phone. Or the mental shift of viewing obstacles as training. Or the deliberate act of writing down a single guiding intention. Don't try to grab them all, choose two. Or even just one. Commit to weaving that single thread into your morning for the next 7 days. Give it your full, gentle attention. Notice how it changes the texture of your day. Does that moment of quiet make the first hour feel less frantic? Does premeditating a friction point make you feel more prepared, less reactive? The integration happens naturally. As one practice becomes a habit, it creates a natural opening for another. The pause creates space for a moment of gratitude. The gratitude softens your perspective. It makes the premeditation of challenges feel more strategic than pessimistic. They begin to flow together. You're not ticking boxes. You're tuning an instrument, your own mind, so it can play the day's music with more harmony. No matter how discordant the notes may seem, so here's a reflective prompt to carry forward. Of all the practices discussed, which one or two feel most missing from your current mornings? What is one small, almost effortless step you could take tomorrow to introduce them? It doesn't need to be grand. It could be as simple as placing your phone in another room overnight, or looking out the window for 60 seconds before you speak, or writing a single word on a scrap of paper as your intention for the day. The power isn't in the scale of the action. It's in the consistency of the return, the daily choice to weave one more thread of awareness into the fabric of your life. This ancient routine isn't just something to study. It's a toolkit, a way to take ownership of your attention before the world takes it from you. We started with that essential pause, a moment of quiet to reclaim your inner space. Then we expanded that space by seeing our small place in a vast cosmos, to drain the drama from the minor things. After that came preparation, not worry, but a strategic premeditation of challenges, disarming them before they could shock us. The heart of the practice was aligning action with virtue, focusing not on the outcome, but on the character we bring to the effort. And then funneling that intention down to the single present moment action, laying the first brick of the day with full attention. Conquering the morning was never about controlling events. It's the daily practice of conquering yourself, establishing command over the one kingdom you truly rule, your own mind. Marcus Aurelius left a final thought for each new dawn. He wrote, "When you arise, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. The beginning of the day is the beginning of life." Each morning is that fresh start, a blank page, and you hold the pen. So as this ends, one reflective question. Of all the insights we walked through, which single one will you carry into tomorrow's first light? Will it be the 60 seconds of quiet before the screen glows, the mental rehearsal that turns anxiety into strategy, or the simple decision to see the next obstacle not as a blockade, but as the path forward? I would love to hear from you. In the comments, share which principle you find most challenging, or which one feels most valuable to you right now. Let's build a community of practice, learning from each other's journeys. If you found value in reconstructing this ancient framework, consider subscribing. We explore more pathways like this, applying timeless wisdom to navigate today's complexities. But more than that, I hope you take this toolkit and use it to build mornings of purpose, days of resilience, and a life of deeper calm. The dawn is waiting, and so is your sovereignty.